TV advertisements or some other. I don't have that much time to give the publicity. So immediately today morning when I decided today I want to give 50%, 51% cashback. I want to give on all purchases in Amazon. Okay. So what are the options are available to me to share this information? Let's take in India. There are 4 crore people are registered. There are 4 crore people are registered in India. Meaning I have 4 crore people contacts. I have 4 crore people contacts are available with me. 4 crore contacts are available with me. So now my requirement is I want to share this data. I want to share to all these people. I want to share the data. So what are all the available options for me to share the information? I want to give the information to these 4 crore people. If you purchase any item in Amazon, you'll get 51% cashback. You will get this information. I want to reach. I want to give to my all my Android users. I want to give. So how can I give this information? How can I say? How can I give the information to all these 4 crore people? What are all the different options are available to give the information? One is SMS. So we use SMS. We use next. What is the next one? SMS is one option. Second option is nothing but call is another option. Send an SMS to all these 4 crore people. Second thing is what? Make a call to all these 4 crore people. Next. What are other options? SMS, call. Tell me what are the other options? Emails. We'll send an email. Next. The last option is nothing but notification. Now here out of these 4 crore people, majority of the people are using the Android devices, smartphones. So send a notification to those devices. So these are the 4 options are available to me. To give this information to all 4 crore people, immediately I have these options: SMS, call, email, and notification. If you take this SMS, if you take the SMS approach, for sending an SMS to 1 lakh people, for sending an SMS to 1 lakh people, meaning the network providers, minimum charge they are taking is 16,000 they are taking for sending an SMS to 1 lakh people. For sending an SMS to 1 lakh people, the provider is charging how much? 16,000. Meaning here 16,000 means 400. Here we are having how many contacts? 4 crore contacts. For sending an SMS to 4 crore people, how much money you had to spend? We had to spend around 64 lakh. We had to spend for sending an email to. For sending an SMS to these 64 people, these 4 crore people, meaning we had to spend how much money? 64 lakh. Really, Amazon will get that much profits of sending one SMS? If you send a message to 4 crore people, how many people will give the response to you? Hardly 100 members or 150 members will give the response to you. Correct or not? Okay. So the first approach is okay, it's going to reach the maximum users it's going to reach. SMS service is going to reach to the maximum people. SMS service is going to reach to the maximum people, but it's too expensive. SMS will reach to the maximum people, but what is the main disadvantage? What? It's too expensive. Okay. That is the first approach. Sending an SMS will reach to the maximum people, but it's what? It's too expensive. So now is it clear? So for sending an SMS to 1 lakh people, these 4 crore people, the provider has to spend 64 lakh. It's too expensive. So second thing is nothing but call. So call means see, is it possible to make a call to 4 crore people in one day? How many people you had to recruit for making a call to these 4 crore people? Practically, it's impossible to make a call to 4 crore people. Practically, it's impossible to make a call to 4 crore people. Okay, and now we are having a true caller application. When you make a call, automatically the user will get some customer care call from Amazon. So user will not lift the call, he is going to disconnect the call. First of all, the main thing is, practically it's impossible to make a call to 4 crore people in one day. That is a one thing. And second thing is nothing but it will not reach to the maximum people, it will not reach. The second one is not possible basically. Let's take the third one. Third one is what? Sending an email. If you send an email, if you send to 4 crore people, basically where you will get the email? If you take my Gmail, if you take, I have some categories, right? There are some categories in the there are some categories in the email. Like categories are nothing but one is inbox, promotions, social. So in the Gmail there are some categories. Now we are having the categories like priority, next social, and promotions. In the email there are some categories are there. Email categories: priority, social, and promotions. Where you will get this email? You will get this email in the promotions category. You'll get this email in the promotions category. So if you, and how many people will see the promotions? Very few people only will see the promotions, because every day we'll get lot of mails. We'll get every day. So simply what we'll do is we'll select all the promotions. We'll select and we'll select the delete button. That's it, right? So it will reach to the maximum people. I mean, it's a free service also. For sending an email, no need to pay any money for sending an email. That is the one thing, but it will not reach to the maximum people. So in one approach, it's good. We don't have to pay any money for sending an email. In the second approach, it will not reach to the maximum people. It will not reach what? The maximum people. Let's see the last approach. That is nothing but notifications. Let's take, imagine, out of these 4 crore people, okay, out of these 4 crore people, imagine 2 crore people are using the smartphones. Out of these 4 crore people, 2 crore people are using what? Smartphones. If the user is using a smartphone, we can send a notification, we can send to the device. We can send a notification to the device, we can send. At least for even for destroying the notification also, even for destroying the notification, what user will do? User has to drag the notification. When user drag the notification, immediately will show with the big font will show there is a 51% cashback in Amazon. Okay, so information is going to be reached to the user. Information is going to be reached to the user. Okay, in case of notifications. In case if you use notification, information will be reached to the users. Okay, information will reach to the users. What about the cost and all? And who is going to send the notification? Who is going to send the notification? In Android, we are having a concept called Google Cloud Messaging. Not only in Android, even if this Google Cloud Messaging we can use for iOS also, we can use. Okay, there is a concept called Google Cloud Messaging. By using that Google Cloud Messaging concept, we can send some information. We can send to the device. Okay, we can send the information. We can send to the device. We can send the information, but user has to know, right? Some information you have to show. You can send an information to the user device. So what user will do is user will display that. I mean, what the programmer will do is whatever the information we received from the server, that information will display as a notification will display. Okay. Advantage of advantage of this notification concept is nothing but, first advantage is nothing but no cost. You don't need to pay any money for sending the notification. That is the first advantage. It's what? No cost. We don't need to pay any money. You don't need to pay for using this notification service. That is the first advantage. Second advantage is nothing but no limit. Second advantage is nothing but what? It's no limit. Was if you have a 1 crore contacts or 2000 2 crore contacts, 200 crore contacts, 2000 crore contacts also, we can send. There is no any limit basically. We can send a notifications to n number of devices. We can send a notifications. No cost, no limit. Okay, and we can send 4 KB of data. We can send as a notification from the server. From server, we can send what? The 4 KB of data we can send as a notification from the server. For 4 KB of data we can send as a notification from the server. and if you send a notification, the notification lifetime is 7 days. 7 days it will live. Okay, after the 7 days, automatically this notification will expire automatically after the seven days. Okay, and the last thing is nothing but it is 10 times faster than the normal SMS. This is 10 times faster than what? 10 times faster than the normal SMS. Okay, so these are the advantages of sending in notifications by using a Google Cloud messaging concept. There is a concept called Google Cloud messaging. By using that concept, we can send a note, we can send some data, we can send to Android devices. Okay, what the programmer will do is he will receive the data and he will display the data as a notification. Because otherwise, if you don't display as a notification, user don't know that information, right? Okay, if you have a requirement, display as a notification. Otherwise, for example, in my okay, so maximum will display a notification. Whatever the information we receive from the server, that information will receive as a display as a notification will display. That's why, because of this notifications concept only, still there is a life for mobile application developers because of this notification concept, to say frankly. Okay, so otherwise, the main difference between the web development and the mobile application development is nothing but we can give the information to the smartphone users, but in case of web, if the person is logged in into the web, then only we can give information. You understand my point, right? If the user is logged in into the web, then only we can give some information to the user in the web. But in case of Android phone, one time if user is login, that's sufficient. Okay, so one time if user is logging into the device, we can give the information to him, we can give the information. Okay, so with the help of this notifications concept. Okay, so now we'll see how the GCM concept is working internally. Internally, we'll see how the GCM concept is working. Now, this notification concept, if you take any application, if you take in the market, Amazon, Flipkart, or WhatsApp, if there is no GCM concept, there is no concept of WhatsApp, first of all. Because internally, WhatsApp is working on this, internally, WhatsApp is using this GCM concept for displaying the notifications. Okay. So, why they are providing the service? I mean, the WhatsApp service for free of cost? Because internally it's using the GCM concept that it is using. First of all, this GCM is free of cost. If this GCM is commercial, then WhatsApp also will charge. Okay, so now let's see how the GCM concept is working. The architecture of Google Cloud Messaging we'll discuss now. So try to understand the architecture. Even the interviews also, no one is going to ask you the coding part. They're going to ask you the architecture internally, how it is working, this GCM concept. Okay, so the first step is we'll install the, first of all, you have to enable the GCM service. You have to enable, like how we enable the Google Maps concept. When you're discussing the Google Maps concept, we enable the Google Maps service, we enable, right? In the same way, we have to enable the Google Cloud Messaging service also, we have to enable. Okay, the first step is if you install any application, if you install this application, we are developing an application, we are developing some X application. We are developing what? Some application we are developing. We are developing an application, we are developing some X application I specified. The first thing is we have to make a request to the GCM server. The first step is we have to make a request to whom? We have to make a request to the GCM server. We have to make a request. One second. The first step to work with GCM is nothing but in your application, we have to make a request to the GCM server. So there is a method called GCM register dot GCM register is a class. It contains a method called register is a method. So we have to pass two parameters. We have to pass for this method. GCM register.register is a method. We have to specify your activity object. Had to specify, and we had to specify the project ID. We had to specify. So these two parameters we had to send to the GCM server. GCM register.register is a method. GCM register dot what? A register is a method. So if you call this method, this is the first one. I don't have this much space, that's why I written here. This is the first step. We had to call GCM register dot register of project ID comma this. So this is the first step. We had to make a request from our Android application. We'll make a request to the GCM server. We had to make a request. From our Android application, we'll make a request to what? GCM server will make a request by calling this method. What is the method name? Method name is nothing but GCM register of this comma project ID. So it's going to make a request to the GCM server. What GCM server will do is GCM server will generate a registration ID. This registration ID is a key element in the notification part, displaying the notification using GCM. What GCM server will do is GCM server will generate what? A registration ID it will generate. GCM server will generate what? One registration ID it will generate. GCM server will generate what? A registration ID it will generate. To generate a registration ID, it will store the registration ID into their database with some unique identifier. Okay. So GCM server will generate what? A registration ID it will generate and will store that registration ID into their database server. Which one? GCM database server. They'll store this registration ID. GCM database server. Okay. So GCM server will generate what? A registration ID it will generate. GCM server will generate a registration ID. GCM server will generate one registration ID it will generate and will store the registration ID into database server, GCM database server, and it will return that generated registration ID, meaning automatically it will not return. Again, we had to call. This is the first step. We had to call this method. We had to call first to get the registration ID. To get the registration ID first, we had to call this method. We had to call GCM register of this comma project ID. Okay. Second thing is nothing but okay. We are registering with the GCM server, and internally GCM server is going to generate a registration ID for your device and for your application. Okay, from application to application you will get different registration IDs. The unique identifier is nothing but what? One is the registration ID, second thing is what? Application ID. Okay, just give me 1 minute. Yeah, so to generate registration ID, to store the registration ID into what? Into GCM database server. Next, there is a method called GCM register.get registration ID is a method. What is the second step? GCM register dot, there is a method called get registration ID is a method. GCM register dot get registration ID is a method. So if you call this method GCM register dot get registration ID method, if you call, so we'll get the generated registration ID. Whatever the registration ID it is generated in the GCM database, it's going to return the registration ID. It's going to return to your application. Whatever the ID it is generated, you will get that registration ID. You will get into your application. You will get the generated registration ID. You will get into your application. You will get. So what you will get from the server? You will get the registration ID you will get from the server. This is the second step. This is what? The second step. We will get the registration ID we will get from the server, we will get the registration ID. Okay, next. So the application will receive what? The application server will receive a registration ID. It will receive from the server. Okay. Next, what the application will do is, this application, our Android application server has to send this registration ID, whatever the registration ID it is received from the server. Whatever the registration ID it is received from the server, this registration ID it will send to, whatever the registration ID is received from the server, this registration ID it will send to what server it will send. This registration ID it will send to server. Server means nothing but your application server, meaning you had to create either Java or .NET or PHP, any one of the server-side application you had to create. The third step is the generated registration ID will send to the application server. So application server means it may be a Java technology or .NET or PHP, any one of the technology. The registration ID will send to what? The generated registration ID will send to what? To application server will send the registration ID. This is the third step. After receiving the registration ID, the application will send, our Android application will send that registration ID to the application server. To the application server. We'll send the registration ID to the application server. What application server will do is, application server will receive that registration ID. Whatever the registration ID you sent, application server will receive that registration ID. Application server will receive that registration ID it will receive from your Android application, and it will store the registration ID into their database server. Application server will store that registration ID, whatever the ID you sent, that registration ID application server will store into what? Into their database server they will store. Application server will store the registration ID into their database server. This is the fourth step. Application server will receive your registration ID and it will store the registration ID into their database. Application database, it will store the registration ID. Okay, this is the fourth step. Application server will receive the registration ID and store the registration ID in the application database. Whenever application wants to give a notification, application means nothing but the server. Okay, so once the registration ID is received, okay, you will send the registration ID to the application server. Whenever the application server wants to send a notification to your device, whenever application wants to send a notification to your device, application server will make a request. This application server will make a request to the GCM server. Application server will make a request to what? To the GCM server it will make a request. Okay. Okay. Application server what will do is, because application server contains a lot of registration IDs. So to whom it has to send a notification, it wants to send a notification. First parameter it's going to specify the registration ID to whom you want to send a notification. Second parameter is nothing but message. First parameter is the registration ID. Second parameter is nothing but what? A message. Application server is going to send these two parameters to whom? In the request, application server is going to specify these two parameters to the GCM server. Application server is going to specify these two parameters to whom? To the GCM server. GCM server, I want to send a message. I want to send a message to this device. I want to send a message because the application server don't know meaning which device is configured with this registration ID. Which device is configured with this registration ID. So your application server will make a request to the GCM server. These two parameters it will send, registration ID and message. Okay. GCM server will receive the two parameters it will receive, registration ID and message. And GCM server, your application server don't know that information, who is using that particular, whose device is configured with this registration ID. But who knows that information? GCM server knows that information, whose device is configured with this. So GCM server is going to send a notification. I mean, GCM server is going to send that information to that particular device. Okay. So this is the last step. Whatever the message you are sending from the server, whatever we are from the application server, we are making a request to our GCM server. I want to send a message to this registration ID device. And what is the message you want to send? GCM server knows which device is configured with this registration ID. So it's going to send a message to that particular device. It's going to send a message. Okay. This is the architecture of GCM. Just I'll give the steps once again. This is the first step. Application server will make a request to what? To the GCM server, it will make a request. This is the first step. Next, what the application server has to do? Application server is going to generate the registration ID, and it's going to store the registration ID in their database. Which database? GCM server database. It's going to store that registration ID. Whenever you make a request to the GCM server, from GCM server, we'll get the registration ID. We'll get from the GCM server. This is the third step. From GCM server, we will get a registration ID. We'll get from the GCM server by calling this method called GCM server.get registration ID method. You will receive a registration ID. You will receive this registration ID will be sent to what? To the application server. This is a fourth step. The generated registration ID will be sent to what? Application server it will send. This is a fourth step. Fifth step is nothing but application server will store the registration ID in the application database. Application server will store that registration ID in the application database. Sixth step is nothing but whenever the application wants to display a notification to the device, so application server will make a request. This application server will make a request to what? GCM server will make a request. Okay, GCM server will receive that registration ID and message, and it will send a message to that particular device. So which device is registered with that particular registration ID. This is the third step. This is the architecture of what? Google Cloud Messaging. Any queries in this architecture? For each device, you'll get a registration ID. For each device is each application. For example, if your mobile is having 10 applications, then you'll get the 10 registration IDs. A unique identifier for every application. Okay, the same registration ID you will not get for all the applications. See, if there are 2 or 3 devices are there, WhatsApp, okay, or you are having another application called Amazon, Flipkart, you'll get Amazon notifications, you'll get Flipkart notifications, you'll get WhatsApp notifications, you'll get. So for one application, one unique ID. Okay, it's a device plus application. That's why you are sending the project ID. You are sending. Next. Okay. So in this architecture, what is our Android responsibility? The Android responsibility is nothing but this is the first one. Generating a registration ID. Meaning we had to call the Google Cloud Messaging GCM server we had to call for generating the registration ID. This is the Android responsibility. Just marking in a circle. This is Android responsibility. The first step is Android responsibility. Second step is GCM server is going to GCM is going to store that registration ID in the GCM database. Okay, we are not doing that one. So the next thing is nothing but the third step. So third step is also what? Android responsibility only. Meaning whatever the registration ID generated in the GCM server, we had to get that registration ID we had to get from the server. The second step is also nothing but Android responsibility only. And the fourth one, meaning whatever the registration ID we received from the GCM server, so that registration ID we had to send to our server. We had to send. We know already we discussed. There is a concept called web services concept. By using web services concept, we can send that registration ID, whatever it is, whatever we got registration ID from the GCM server, that registration ID we had to send to the application server. We had to send. Okay, this is the present architecture in the market. Okay, so now we'll see the coding part. Now we'll see coding part. We'll see whether how to make a request to the GCM server and all. Okay, but here I will not write the code. I will not write because I created one built-in application I created. I'll forward that application. I'll forward. Just understand these two steps because our requirement is only one thing: hit the GCM server, get the registration ID from the server, and push that registration ID to the application server. This is our responsibility. Okay, so Give me a minute. Wait. There's a project called GCM. Okay, I'm moving this GCM. I'm moving this GCM project. Also, I'm moving into your drive folder. I'm moving this GCM project. Okay, so I moved that GCM project. Also, I moved into your drive folder. I moved. Okay, so here in this shared videos drive folder, you can find a folder called GCM is a folder. Okay, which contains two projects. One is a GCM client. Second thing is GCM server. One is what? The GCM client. Second thing is what? GCM server. These are the two projects: GCM client and GCM server. Okay, so I'm downloading this client application. I'm downloading this client application. I'm downloading. Let's download this project. So how many of you are using the Android phones? Because we required now. I'll send that. How many of you are using the Android phones? My question is, how many of you are using Android phones? Send me the response if you're using the Android phones. Okay. Pramod, Alekia, Mahmoud. Okay. So then remaining people are opposite to us, iPhone. Come on, it's taking a lot of time. Fine. Already added you to this drive folder, Alekia. Just check it once. Day before yesterday added. Because we required the GCM client project we required. So I'm downloading the project I'm downloading. So we'll wait for a few minutes just. Okay, this is a project GCM client. Okay. So in this GCM client project, so we had to import this project, we had to import into to our workspace, we had to import. This is the first thing. I already placed this a project already placed in your drive folder. I already placed. Okay, let's download that a folder download. Okay, in that GCM client project. So now we had to import this project. We had to open this project in our Android Studio. We had to open this project. We had to open this project in our Android Studio. We had to open this project. Okay, so let's open your Android Studio. Just one second. contains a lot of other information. This is not the right project. That's why. Give me a second. I'm searching for the project. This one's. Yeah, late form. So this is a project SDC online. There is a project called GCM client is a project. Yeah, this is the original project. Just ignore this one, and I moved out in folder. I moved into your drive folder, right? That is, what is that one in the advanced Android folder? This is a project GCM, but don't take this one GCM. Just I'm removing this project. I'm removing. Okay, no issue. Just don't take this project. So now I'm moving to another folder. I'm moving to your drive folder. That is nothing but this SDC online is another folder. So this this file also moving into your advanced standard folder. I'm moving. Okay. So this SDC online content, meaning this SDC online project contains a project called GCM client. If you want to test, just import this GCM client project. Import here. Okay. So in my system already that folder is already available. GCM in the SDC online GCM client. Now what we have to do is we had to open this project. We had to open in our Android Studio. We had to open that project. We had to open now. Okay. Just go to your open your Android Studio. Okay. So open the existing Android Studio project. Open existing Android Studio project in the downloads folder. In my system, this is a project SDC online. Sorry, on desktop. On desktop, SDC online is a folder name. Contains a folder called GCM client. Now we have to open this project. We have to choose this project, GCM client project. Okay, download that SDC online, that RAR file or zip file. Okay, so open that GCM client project in your Android. Okay, this is a project. GCM client is a project. Okay, so directly first I'll try to run the application, and if there is, and first I'm checking is there any errors or not. First directly I'll run this application. I'll run first. Okay, just give me a second. First I'll run this application. I'll run first. Let's see. Select here this run button. There's no option to run. Let's see. So 1 second, boss. While you are importing the project, basically it's a Eclipse based project. It's a Eclipse based project. This GCM, whatever the project I'm showing in the SDC online folder, right? It's it is a Eclipse based project, meaning I developed this project in Eclipse. I developed this project. So what we have to do is, while you are importing that project, otherwise there's another folder. Let's try with this one, telephony test, GCM client. Okay, there's another project. I'll try to import this one in desktop, telephony test to GCM client. It's loading the project. Let's see. So this is a final project, GCM client project. Finally, we got the project we got finally. Okay, I'll place this project in the drive folder. I'll place. Okay, let's select this app. First I'll run the app. I'll run the app in my system. And see the output once. What is the user interface it contains? Run the app. So I'll place this folder. I'll place into your drive folder. This is the final project we found. This is the final project. I'll add this project. I'll add into your drive folder. I'll add. So it was taking some time. Here also it's loading the project still. That's why I'm waiting. See, first in this project, let's open the XML file first. In this app, XML file will be located in which folder? In the resource folder. In resource, layout, only one XML file we created, activity underscore main.xml. See, this is a UI we created in the XML. Just only, there are four text view components. The first thing is nothing but registry status. And second thing, you will get the status either already registered or not yet registered. The registration status you will get. Okay, and this is a broadcast message. These two things are the static text. Registry status and broadcast message. These two are static. These two are what? Static. Okay. So next you will get the mess. If the registration status you will get here, whether it is registered or not registered, you will get the registration status you will get here. Okay. And if you receive any message from the server, that message you will get here. Okay, this is an XML file. There is no any much user interface. One thing you'll get the registration status from the server. Second thing is nothing but what is the message you received from the server. This is the second thing. See, in the coding part in Java file, only one activity class we created called main_activity.java. Okay, so here we configured a project ID. We configured. I'll show you where exactly from where we got this project ID. Okay, and next second thing is just to receive the broadcast message, to receive that message, whatever the message we received from the server, we configured a broadcast receiver we configured here. We configured a broadcast receiver we configured, meaning this broadcast receiver is going to be called whenever you receive a message from the server. In the onCreate method, first we got the two text view components we got here. What is the broadcast message from the server and what is the status, registration status, whether it is already registered or registration is accurate. That registration status we'll get here, and what is the broadcast message you received from the server. Just we create two text view components we created. We got the two text view components we got. And here intent filter is equals to new intent filter, meaning to receive the broadcast messages. To receive the broadcast messages, we added an action we added here. So whenever this message is received from the server, immediately it's going to call this broadcast receiver is going to call. Here we configured a broadcast receiver we configured, right? In this broadcast receiver, this broadcast receiver is going to be called whenever you receive a message from the server. Okay, what we are doing is that message we are displaying to the second text view component, we are displaying the message. And see here, what is the first step? In the architecture, we discussed architecture, right? In this architecture, what is the first step? We had to make a request to the GCM server. We had to make a request by calling a method called GCM register.register this project ID. So here in this project, if you see here, first I'm calling the second step. I'm calling registration ID is equals to get registration ID. First I'm calling the third step I'm calling here first. Okay, if this registration ID is empty, you received the empty received from the server. Okay, empty means nothing but what? Registration is not acquired still. So I'm updating the message, updating to registering. Then for registering the GCM, first time we are calling a method called GCM register.register this project ID. Meaning we are making a request to GCM server for getting the registration ID. This is the first step, and this is the third step. GCM server is going to generate a registration ID and store into database server. This is the third step. We are receiving the registration ID we are receiving from the GCM server. We are receiving the registration ID we are receiving from the GCM server. If, for example, if you are already registered If we already have a registration ID, then we are updating the message as already registered. Already registered is the message I'm updating. And that registration ID, whatever the registration ID we got from the server, that registration ID I'm storing just for demonstration purpose, because we don't have a server now. I told you, right? Programmatically, it's difficult to understand because we need a server side connection as well as the Android side. But at least try to understand the concept. I'm trying to demonstrate the concept, because programmatically means we need the Android application and we need the server application also. We need that connection also we required for sending this registration ID to the server. Okay, so what I'm doing is temporarily this communication we don't have now. We don't have a server. We don't have for sending this registration ID to the server. That's why what I'm doing is I'm storing that registration ID in my phone. In my phone, I'm storing the registration ID. What is a file name? Registration id.txt is a file name. In my phone internal storage, I'm storing a file called registration id.txt. Okay, this is what I'm doing. So I install the application. I install the application. I install. So here, see, what is the status I got? Registration status already registered. I got the registration status. I got, what is the status we got? Already registered is the status we got already. Okay, meaning internally it's going to create a file. It's going to create, because we are creating a file in the storage. Let's go and see in the file storage whether the file is created or not. ODS file explorer. Okay, in the device internal storage SD card 0, we created a file with the name reg underscore id.txt is a file name. Okay, this is a file name. Registration underscore id.txt is a file name. Let's open the text file. Let's open the text file. See, this is the registration ID. This is the registration ID we got from the server. It's a huge number. I mean, it's a 256 characters number. It is. It is what? It's a 256 characters number. Okay. So we got the registration ID we got from the server. We got the registration ID we got from the GCM server. So next, what we had to do? This registration ID, we had to configure at the server side. We got the registration ID we got from the GCM server. Just give me a minute. I'll send this registration ID to my mail account, because just I'm sending that registration ID. I'm sending to my mail account. I'm sending. Okay. The first two steps are completed. In our architecture, the first two steps are completed. We are making a request to GCM server. We are making a request from GCM server. We received the registration ID also. We received from the GCM server. But we don't have this server. We don't have now. Now our main problem is we don't have this server, because we are the Android developers and we don't have the knowledge on the server side. And this server is not available now. So that's why we are not able to send this registration ID to our application server. Of course, in the real-time projects, that is different, boss. In the real-time projects, you'll get a server, and they're going to give you a URL. They are going to give you web service. They are going to give you for storing this registration ID, for sending this registration ID. Right now, we don't have this server communication. That's why what I'm doing is I send that registration ID, whatever the registration ID we received from the GCM server. That registration ID I'm storing into a file. I'm storing, and I'm sending that. I send that registration ID. I sent to my mail account. I send the registration ID to my mail account. I send that registration ID. Let me open my Gmail. See, I got the registration ID. I got the registration ID. So now, whenever server wants to, meaning this communication, what we are doing is manually we are creating. We don't have a server. That's why whatever the registration ID we received, that registration ID we sent as an email we sent. Now here, the application server has to make a request to whom? GCM server. The application server has to make a request to whom? To the GCM server along with the two parameters. What are the two parameters? Registration ID is one parameter. Second parameter is the message. Registration ID is one parameter. Second parameter is what? Message is the second parameter. Okay. Okay. So now here we got the registration ID. Up to now, Android part is done, boss. We are hitting the GCM server. We got the registration ID we got, and so we stored the registration ID. Basically, we had to send the registration ID to our application server. Our Android responsibility is done. Now the second thing is what? The application server has to make a request to what? The GCM server. Okay. So I'll open the application server side. Server program also I'll open because I created a server program also I created. But this is the out of scope. This is a Java, advanced Java knowledge. We required some server-side Java knowledge we required. If you have a knowledge on any one of the server-side technology like advanced Java, .NET or PHP, if you make a request in Google GCM server-side project, you'll get a sample part you'll get. Okay. So let's take my phone. We got the registration ID we got now, right? Applications. I created a server-side project also I created. Now I'll open that server-side project, meaning how the application server will make a request to the GCM server. This is a server side code. Okay. What the server side people they'll do, if they wants to send any message, is a GCM server is a project. If you have a knowledge on the server side programming, already shared in the drive folder, already shared, right? The drive folder, there is a project called GCM server project is also there. I shared a folder called GCM, right? This GCM folder contains a project called GCM server.rar. If you have a knowledge on the Java server side programming, you can import this project, you can import in your Eclipse. Okay. Okay. So mainly this is a class, this is a server side program. So what they will do is they'll configure the list of registration IDs, they'll configure here. The GCM broadcast.java, they'll configure the list of Android devices to whom you want to send a notifications. They'll configure that list of devices, they'll configure here. For example, I want to get a notification, I want to get to my device, I want to get a notification. What we have to do is let's configure this registration ID. Whatever the registration ID we got here, in my phone I got this registration ID, so that's why I sent this registration ID as an email. I sent this registration ID. For example, from application server I want to send a notification, I want to send to this device, I want to send a notification, I want to send to this device, I want to send as a notification. So this device we have to configure here. Android target start. Remove this registration ID, the existing registration ID. We want to send to what? We already got our own registration ID we got. So that registration ID we have to configure here. This is the registration ID we got from the server, from the GCM server. Now we configured our own registration ID we configured now. Okay. So now what I'll do is I'll run this server side program. I'll run as run on server. Okay. See here, let's open your Android project. This is a server side. This is a server side code. Okay, it's a web page now. It's a browser. Let's open your Android screen. Let's open the Android screen. See what is the message we are having in my phone. In my phone, see what is the message is available now. No broadcast message yet, right? No broadcast message yet. I'm sending a message to welcome to Durga Soft. This is a server now. From server, I'm sending a message. I'm sending welcome to Durga. Sorry. So welcome to colors idea specified, for example. Okay. So now click on this submit button. See what will happen. So immediately we got the message we got. Of course, we got the text we got from the server. So immediately it's updated. Welcome to color site. This is a server. It's a browser. It is my mobile phone. It is what? It's my mobile phone. I'm showing my mobile phone preview. I'm showing here. Okay. And you can give any message you can give here. Like for example, hi Hyderabad again. So within fraction of seconds you will get this message. You will get. Now we are displaying just a message. We are displaying. Now we are displaying what? Just we are displaying a message. We are displaying. If you want to display a notification, if you want to display, simple. We are displaying a message. We are displaying here. Broadcast message is equals to just here. We are updating the text. We are updating the text view component here. We are updating the text. We are updating to the text view component. We are updating the text. Now here, what we had to do is you had to write that notification logic. Yesterday we written right. Yesterday we written that notification logic. We had to write here rather than displaying the text to the text view component. If you display the text as a notification, you'll get as a notification. You'll get. But now what we are doing is just we are updating the text. We are updating to the text view component. We are updating. That's it. Okay. This is the GCM concept. Sample notification is at the server side. Click on this submit button. Sample notification. Okay. So how many of you understand? How many of you not understand? See,